Right, we're here for a quick live watercolour demonstration, following on from the painting and sketching trip Gordon and I had up at Low Newton, which is on YouTube, came out last week. I don't know if you've seen it. And I haven't done a live stream for months, so I've forgotten how much of a hassle this is setting everything up. But anyway, I'm here. The paper set up. This is some rough cotton 300-gram paper on a block, and the little sketch that I did in acrylic is that one there. Hopefully this connection is going to improve a little bit because I'm monitoring this on the laptop and I can see that it's not ideal. But anyway, that was the little sketch that I did when I was there, so we're going to try and recreate that. But Gordon's asked us to do a little watercolour stream, live stream, of how I would maybe tackle this in watercolour. So I've tried a few different little versions of this, and I feel that it suits this square format a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to stick with the format that I had on the original. I can see that the quality, and we've got a big bright patch here which I'm trying to sort of work around, but anyway, hopefully everything else is visible. We've got water set up, clean water to dry. We've got a little flat brush, round, no idea what that is, AF85, that one there. And let's just crack on and get this done and see what comes out. Put a little bit of kitchen towel. I'm just going to wipe this palette clean. So like I say, we're just going to go for a square on this one, and I'm going to mask, even though this is on a block, I'm just going to mask it just so that it gives a nice little presentation at the end. That is the height of that there, so we're going to just go for that on there. Should be roughly square. And I think what's going to work best here if I roughly put the sky in the top quarter of the, or the horizon line, should I say, in the top quarter. So we're going to go for right there. Just going to use an offcut of paper just to measure that off. And then just get that. Is that even straight? No, that's a straight edge there. And then I'm doing another one just down here, just so I can remember where I'm working to. And the castle, hopefully you can see this come up here. That's the cliffs of the castle. There was quite a strong shadow on there, and then that comes down quite steep, and then there's some fields in the background. And I'm not using a photo reference for this one because we've done this quite a few times now. So it's just a representation. This is Dunstanburgh Castle on the top here. Some cliffs on the bottom. And what I want to do is go from this corner here and then create this bay. So I'm just sort of roughly sketching that in. Something along those lines. And then we had dunes coming up here, so you could see a little bit of the sea between the distant castle, and you had the dunes coming here. I'll just show you this reference again. and then they would slightly follow around the shape. So we're sitting up a hill looking down on this, and just to kind of make it clear that these are dunes, I'm just going to put some little kind of dune shapes in there, and that's probably all I need. So I've got the distant castle in the background, blue sky, dunes, sand, this will be sea, that'll be sky. Let's crack on with this. Hopefully, this is very, very bright, that palette, but there you go. I'm going to just work with this. So I'm just going to stick a little bit of water on the top. Just clean this brush out. And then some clean water just along the top here. Take that down to the edge of the horizon. And then in with a little bit of yellow ochre. Straight that. Now that makes a nice contrast to the blue that I'm going to be putting in for the castle. So we've just wetted the whole of this here, and then I'm going to go in with a little bit of French ultramarine. Just going to grey that off a little bit with that yellow ochre that I had in there. And I'm going to run that across that bleed in, maybe angle it a little bit, and then I'm just going to squeeze the water out of the, or the paint out of the brush, and just put the indication of some clouds in there. That's just taking the paint out a little bit, and then again with some French ultramarine, a little bit of light red. That gives it a little grey colour, so we'll just put the bottoms of the clouds in there. That's enough. While that is drying, let's speed this up in a bit, but what we'll do is we'll put this whole block of sand in while this top end is drying. So I'm just going to clean this out again. And we've got some yellow ochre. I don't know if this stream's frozen. Right, we've picked this back up again with a different camera. What happened there was I was using my iPhone to record the camera, and it just overheated instantly. I think a bit too much processing power, so maybe this will be slightly better quality. So we had the sky in, and then what I said I was going to do is start putting in this bit of dunes and headland in here. I don't mind taking this up here, so I'm going on to dry paper with this one. A little bit of detritus on there, and then as I bring this round, I'm just going to start dipping into the yellow ochre and start bringing some stronger tones in, so that as you get nearer to the viewer, it's stronger and starts to fade away into the distance. Now, one thing you'll notice is I'm taking my brush strokes in the direction of that beach, so everything's going around into there. So it just helps, the odd line will show through, and it just helps to bring that through. When we were at the beach, there was a nice little pool, or there's a little bit of standard mortar that was left from when the tide had gone out, and that was creating some nice little reflections. So to put that in, I'm just going to put some French ultramarine blue in, and just leave that there. And again, this all helps just to convey some of this feeling of the beach going around there. Now, that is not fully dry there, so if I start putting this castle in, it's going to bleed through into the sky. So I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. swap over to this round brush and just pick a little bit more of this blue up, and then grey it off with a little bit of light red. Just check that. It's going to look a bit darker on this paper here, but it'll dry down perfectly. So now I'm going to go carefully across here, try and keep this horizon line straight. So I have this dark patch here, and then maybe just stick a little bit of lemon yellow in there, just to give the hint of the grass that was shown up on this side. Touch more. And then along the cliff top. And then I'm going to put in a bit more of this bluey grey mix. For the castle, this is going to bleed through into that green a little bit, but I'm not fussed about that. This is just a quick little demonstration. It'll actually just help to cement the castle onto the cliff top a little bit. It's quite a ruined old castle, this one, so we've got quite a few bits of old ruin, old just broken down turrets and stuff. This was a little bit darker along here, and then there was just a little hint of the cliffs and fields in the background there. Just going to tidy this up a little bit, take some of this down. I was just starting to be a bit ambitious with the big brush, so I'll go back and put that in. Let's now put this sea in here. So for this, I'm going to go back to this flat brush and some French ultramarine. Just try a little bit there, just grey that off just a smidgen, because the sea has always got to mirror roughly what's going on in the sky. And then because this is a rough paper, I'm just using the brush just delicately across there, trying to leave a little line and just the odd little sparkle coming through to either show the light or the waves. I don't know if you can hear that wind coming through there, because we're having a bit of a storm, summer storm coming through today. And this was a little debate we had when Gordon and I were up sketching at Low Newton, because the bay comes round here, but rather than sort of bring the sea down too much, I felt that it might look a little bit odd, so I'm just going to leave that straight. I'll come in and tidy up these edges a little bit later on. And now, once that's in, I'm going to treat these slightly separately, so I'm going to just warm or saturate things a little bit more, so a little bit more blue into there. Just try that. So it should be a bit darker. Oh, I've gone far too heavy with the red there. this in. Now again, just leaving a little edge just for where the sea and the shoreline or the waves are starting to lap up against the edge of the coast. And again, I'm kind of being mindful as to where I'm trying to use my brush strokes to convey the movement that we're found with the water. So the waves were kind of going in this kind of elliptical manner. And then over there. And then where we've got these little waves coming through, I'm just going to darken that off a little bit. Maybe a little bit of yellow in there, just to make that greeny, and that'll just give that appearance of the underneath of the waves as they were coming along here. We won't see them on that side because the waves were going that way, so I'm just doing it wherever this little white patch is. And that just helps to give a little bit more. The more detail you've got as you get closer helps to just convey this feeling of depth. That's feeling dry now. Like I said, I need to go back and fix that in a bit. Let's just put some lemon yellow on there, some blue. Just check that, it'll probably be a bit too bright. Not too bad actually. It's about there. A little bit more blue. And again, just using this flat brush. So now I'm going to take this up. This is the dunes. And then we're going to just start filling those in. And then, I don't know if you saw before the camera packed in, but I was just leaving these, I'm exaggerating this just to make it more feel like these dunes. So I'm taking the brush around, and now I'm just going to add a little bit more blue as we darken off into the foreground here, or the middle ground as it were, and a nice little bit of blue there just to break that up. And there was a little bit of green kind of rocks and algae or something just on the end there, so I'll put those in. I'll clean this brush off. This is pretty much dry now. So now I'm going to mix up a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of raw umber. So as the sea meets the sand, it always darkens the sand a little bit, so this just helps to convey that feeling, and also again just adding more contrast to the front of the picture, and then so it starts to help the eye recede away, and obviously you can sort of start to try and get some shapes of the little blob there of the sand and the bay as it went round. And again, I can just use the side of the brush just around here just to start bringing some form, just to show the shape of the beach going round. This needs to be darkened off a little bit. There were some rocks here, maybe just along there. Right, we'll let that dry off a little bit, clean this brush. Let's see if I can just tidy this up. I did make a bit of a mess with this castle here because I got frustrated with the camera packing in halfway through. So I'm just trying to get a nice grey blue here. And then we'll just tidy this up a little bit. Some cliffs going down here. Really not happy with this castle. Well, actually, just sometimes the odd little mark just saves it. And then just to give some depth to these dunes, the sun was coming across here and it was leaving some pretty strong shadows on there, so we're going to stick those in with a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, back to the blue, and we'll make a nice purpley shadow, maybe a little bit of cadmium red just to warm it up even more. And just thinking about where, if the sunlight was coming across and you've got these dunes, you'd have the sunlight hitting there, so you'd really just get the shading around this side here. So again, it was underneath. And that's a nice, rather than using purple, grey for the shadows, this just introduces a bit of warmth into there. That gives a nice feeling of these shadows coming across, but without making everything all somber and dark. Now while I've got this purpley mix on, and this is far too ambitious a brush, but I'm just going to put some little indications of people on the beach. Can't have them all in pairs. There's an awful lot of people on the beach today. I'm going to use this rigger brush now, just go in again, pick a bit more of that purpley mix up, and just see if we can, as we're getting closer, just give a little bit more detail there. We're not drawing people, we're just drawing shapes, just lines really, see where things go. Little dot with a line underneath is all you need. There's a guy with his dog. There's a guy walking there. So as you can see, it just starts to give a bit of perspective to the picture again. Don't want to be drawing arms and legs and stuff. There's a little couple right at the foreground here. Just going to hint a little bit of red in there. Right, and then just to finish off this little sketch, I'm just going to mix up a little bit of green in there, and yours got a little bit of detritus, a bit of seaweed or something just in the foreground. So I'm going to put that in there, just again tapering that way and using this as a device just to kind of bring the eye around into this bay, and then maybe a little bit of raw umber. And then right in the foreground here, I'm just going to mask this bit off, and we'll just get a little bit of texture going just in the front here. There's a little dot just got in there, that comes out, no problem. Maybe that was a little loose one. And I'm just going to use my finger just to smear these a little bit, again in the direction of this. Right, I'm going to give everything a quick dry. I think I want to add just a little bit more texture just to the bottom here, so I'm going to mask this up a little bit better this time and just mix up a little bit of this raw umber, maybe a bit of yellow ochre, and just give that another little flick. Just that's it. Down there. Away. And we've got a little bit here which has just bled through, so we'll just fix that with a little scratch. And then this is a chance now just to get a few little extra lines of the foam of the sea coming through. Or another thing you can sometimes use is a little bit of chalk or pastel, just to smear that across. And finally, because we've got these strong shadows on there, we're gonna get a little bit of that purpley mix up again and just put some shadows in where these figures are. That grounds them. Again, just going fading off a little bit. Maybe there's a little rocky outcrop just here, so I'm just going to add that in. Right, I think that's probably going to do for now, just for that little quick demonstration of how we're going to do that in watercolour. That was the original acrylic that was painted on plain air, and that's the little watercolour that we've got there. Right, I hope you enjoyed watching that and you got some little tips and techniques off it. before I did this, I did a few little test runs just to, like I say, I felt that this, doing it in the landscape format, just meant there was far too much going on here. There wasn't enough. You still had the nice line leading in, but there was just a lot of expanse here. So I decided that this little square format worked quite well, and I've done this one sort of roughly double the size. But anyway, hope you found that useful, and apologies for the live stream going wrong, but hopefully I've rescued it. And tell you what we need to do, maybe this is a little thing for Gordon. Gordon always likes a little seagull going on there. We've got the shadows in. You could start, this is probably where you need to just stop, because you can just start messing on, putting people in, sitting in deck chairs. We don't need that. This is just a little demonstration piece. Anyway, right, hopefully that came out all right. I'm going to see if I can disconnect this camera and zoom in a little bit. There you go. So the people have got a little bit of form to them, and I feel that maybe this could have been a little bit lighter in the distance, just to recede it a little bit, but we've got the shadows in, everything that I wanted to capture. So there you go. Right, thanks for watching, and we'll have some more sketching videos and maybe some Studio One, especially as the winter starts progressing. We're miles away from that yet, but we will probably have some more studio sessions coming up. The colours that I used in this very old palette, I'll just move that out of the way there, were French ultramarine, yellow ochre, light red, a little bit of lemon yellow mixed with the ultramarine to give that green, a little bit of raw umber, and that was it pretty much. So there you go. Right, I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.